So as we say, we know the champions Liverpool and now Arsenal guaranteed to be in the Champions League next season. That leaves 3, remember, up for grabs in the Premier League for next season. As you can see behind me, the table shows you where the teams currently are. This is what is left for those sides. As we've mentioned, for Newcastle, huge game. Everton at home win that and they are there. Chelsea, less straightforward because they're away at Nottingham Forest, who won today to keep themselves in the race, just a point behind Chelsea. Aston Villa play Manchester United away. And Manchester City, remember, beaten in the FA Cup final, have 2 games to play. We're back with you for Matchday Live on Tuesday. They're at home to Bournemouth and then away to Fulham. So, quite simple question. Which 3 out of those join Arsenal and Liverpool in the Champions League draw?
I think Forest will beat Chelsea.
Do you?
I think the way Chelsea's season's gone, I just feel that Forest have got a bit more momentum going into it. It means a lot more for them to get into it, as much as...
The predictor doesn't think that, Brady?
No, but I'm not bothered about the predictor. I think that Chelsea and the way it's gone for them, I just feel that Forest are finishing with more momentum and more...
But 68 might not be enough, depending on if City and Villa win there and Newcastle win. They could still beat Chelsea and miss out.
OK, then, well, I'll go for...
I needed a calculator, don't worry about it.
All I would say is this time last week, Newcastle on the supercomputer predictor were on 94 or something percent, and now it's dropped to 83.
Well, there's 3 of Shea Given's ex-clubs on there, so...
I'll get a job somewhere next season and one of them gets something like that.
What I'm expecting you to say Newcastle, Villa and City are going to make
Well,
it.
ideally that would help, yeah. But I'm saying, like, obviously Newcastle have got, as Eddie says, it's a big week now.
Fancy Newcastle at home.
Yeah, at home you'd fancy that, of course.
Okay.
But again...
So we're saying Newcastle the 3rd.
Yeah.
OK, I'll take that, Steve.
Right. It's unthinkable for the reigning champions not to be in the Champions League, isn't it?
Well, it's Tuesday's game. You mentioned Tuesday's game's on here on Tuesday night. That game
I think Villa beat Man United.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they finished with 69.
But I'm looking at Man City, Bournemouth on Tuesday night, right? That's a tough game. After losing the cup final yesterday, their morals are a bit low.
They're 2 very tough games.
Fulham away
I'm going to put Villa in.
OK. Yeah. So Newcastle, Villa and Forest?
Yeah.
OK.
No, I can't do Forest now because I've kind of gone off of the vibe. you took me off of
the vibe.
I can't
Well, it was
now.
the calculator that took you off it, in fairness. I was just relaying the message, but...
Yeah, but I needed you to do that for me.
OK.
I think City will get the job done somehow.
Do you?
Yeah.
I do. I think, but Tuesday's massive for them. Bournemouth at home. De Bruyne's last home game as well in a Manchester City shirt. It's a massive game.
Yeah. I'll go with Shea with that.
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah.
Right. When we come back...
Shows you what nerves can do. And we now go into the final day of the season. Manchester City have got another game still to go between now and then. And there's only a point between these teams at the moment. So here we know. Liverpool qualify as champions. They'll be going through to the Champions League. Arsenal's win today means they are in the Champions League. Newcastle, because of the goal difference, they win, they're in. Same with Chelsea. Aston Villa need to win and they need to hope that someone else drops points. Manchester City, if they win their remaining games, they're pretty much in. Nottingham Forest need to beat Chelsea and hope that someone else slips up. So 3 in, 2 out. Predict.
Well, you look at that. Chelsea are 4th at the moment. If they get beat by Nottingham Forest, they're back in the Europa Conference. Well, they'll be in the Europa if they win, but they could end up 7th in the league. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd have to go with Newcastle safe, and I only say that because Everton have got not a lot to play for. So I am going to go. My worry is Man City. Mm-hmm. I really do. The last 2 games, they've failed to score in the last 2. They got Bournemouth coming up.
And then Fulham at Fulham.
Yeah, but Bournemouth's a dangerous game. You know, if they don't get anything out of this Bournemouth game, this is the one they need to get a point out. Because if they get a point out of this, it's back in their hands again. If they lose, it's out of their hands. And that's all you can ask for on the last day of the season, is for it to be in your hands. And at the moment, it's only in Newcastle, Chelsea's and Man City's hands as we talk.
And Bournemouth came here a few weeks ago and won. They're an excellent side, and it's not exactly going to be party time at Manchester City after losing the FA Cup yesterday. So they're going to have to create the atmosphere themselves, the players. It won't be easy. Of course, what's at stake, they'll want that top 5 place because they want Champions League football. But they're 2 tough games. Fulham won again today. They're going to want to finish as high as possible. Anything could happen. I think Chelsea got the toughest game. I think Chelsea to go to Nottingham Forest, that's a really difficult one. If they can get 3 points there, and obviously you're giving yourself Champions League football, and it's going to be tight, Liz. I think anything can still happen.
You're all thinking Newcastle, definitely.
I think at home,
One
the
of
last
the
day of the
places.
season at home, you'd expect them to beat Everton because Everton got nothing to play for. They can't even move up a place
Or drop
And
down.
they've had all the celebration of Goodison Park
Yeah.
today, and that was a big... Manchester City, 4 points from Bournemouth and Fulham. You're nervy about them, aren't you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm very.
Les?
I'm nervy.
I think they'll do it. You know, like I said, going in and it's in your own hands. And this City, we know they can produce when they want. I know things haven't been great for them this season, but they can turn up when they need to.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, that's tough.
Decent
Really
team.
good side.
Was the cup final a little bit of a concern for you for City? Because as Les says, we've said this a lot this season, City can play brilliantly when they turn up.
Yeah.
And yet when there was silverware on the table, and they started the game really well, but they didn't deliver.
Well, if they'd have won the FA Cup yesterday, we'd have probably said those two games are going to take care of themselves. But it just affects your confidence a little bit. It'd be Kevin De Bruyne's last home game. He's going to want to go out on a high and produce a big performance. I still think they'll do it, but I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch. If you look at the one fixture, the team with the easiest fixture, I would say is probably Aston Villa, because they've got Manchester United away. I mean, in terms of... None of us know what's going to happen on Wednesday night. That's going to be an crazy game.
If that wishing well works, I know what's going to happen.
So lots to play for here, and I still think anything is possible. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the great sort of Sundays on Sky
this
Sports.
is a masterclass of ducking the question, really. That's what this is,
Because these aren't teams that are banging form. We're not normally normally we're talking about Manchester City last day of the season going to win the title. We're talking now about them trying to get into the top 5. That just shows you. So anything can still happen.
Give us something that we can make you look really silly with in a week's time.
Kelly, just look back at last year. Every season. But no, I think Man City. I think Manchester City getting there.
Will City get
You know, I think Chelsea have got the toughest fixture. They're the team that I worry about the most, just going to Nottingham Forest. And that result today has given them real belief and hope. But even then, even if they win, it still doesn't mean they're guaranteed to get into the Champions League.
So not as a 100% prediction, but you think more than likely Newcastle will beat Everton. They'll get the win that they need. It's likely that Manchester City will get the 4 points that they need, which you're less confident about. We've got 2 versus 1 in that sense. Villa with the game against Manchester United. Do you think that with Manchester United having that big Europa League final against Spurs in Bilbao in midweek, does that mean that Villa are likely to get the victory against Manchester United?
I would go without that. Even without that game, I'd go Villa to win that game. But it's what the other teams do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not in their hands.
You think Villa win. Villa get the win that they need.
You can show me that graphic another 100 times and I'm going to change my mind 100 times. It's very, very difficult.
Don't worry, as long as we've got it clipped up, we're good.
Newcastle at home, you know, we look at it, and what Everton haven't got a great deal to play for. That was an amazing day for them. It was their last day at Goodison Park. So they're going to go to Newcastle next week with no pressure. They're just going to be out of play. If they were to score early, first minute, anything can still happen. We all go, this is what should happen, and they're great teams. They've got the best players. Pressure does funny things to teams and players and individuals, coaches. So there's still a lot, and anxiety is going to be in those stadiums.
And if Villa win or are winning in that game, and it's a draw between Chelsea and Forest, both of those could miss out on Champions League football. Do you think that seems like a realistic possibility, that Villa win and Chelsea and Forest draw?
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think if you said before the game, that's a hard game to call. You know, I've seen it too many times over the season. You know, I've seen Man City turn up to win the league and be 2-0 down. You know,
Aston Villa,
and against get beat by QPR. You know, I've seen it in Holland this year already.
Yeah,
I've seen it in
Ajax.
Holland. I see it yesterday with Strasbourg, last kick of the game. It happens. You know, you just don't turn up on the last day of the season. These are professional footballers. You know, they're playing in front of 50, 60,000. No one wants to get beat. No one wants to lie down and get embarrassed. You know, something will happen, and they'll be nervous, all these players. I like it in my hands. You know, all you can ask on the last day of the season is to be in your hands. And I think that's, you know, long as Man City get at least a draw against Fulham, it's in their hands again.
And what will
if they beat Bournemouth.
Yeah, and
if they draw.
So if they get the draw against Bournemouth, then
if they lose to
Fulham,
Bournemouth, it's out of their hands.
Yeah.
You know what? They could win their last game and not go in. So they've got to at least not lose this football match.
Yeah, and what will play a big part as well is the fact now, obviously everyone's got their phones, everyone knows the score. That anxiety transmits to the players. The crowd start to get a bit more anxious because things aren't going well. You hear a massive cheer. and sometimes the information isn't always correct.
Sometimes the opposition fans like to start a rumour.
Exactly. So it's going to be a very exciting, quite a traumatic end of season for a lot of teams.
So the only one you're agreed on is Newcastle so far.
Yeah, I think
that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
and the rest of it, I don't know. Any two from the rest of them.
Well, you were saying about you were worried about Newcastle, but you just think because Everton can't move anywhere.
Yeah, I just think because Everton can't move anywhere. Yeah. I just think Newcastle and Newcastle are good at home. They're decent at home. Do you know what I mean? They're a good football team, and if they play like they did in the first half today, I think that'll be enough.
Yeah. Europa League final then. Quick word. Spurs against Manchester United. If you think that was hard to predict, talk to me about two teams who, on paper, by any metric, have had poor seasons.
I think you've been kind with the word poor.
They're right down only just above the relegation places of teams who've had desperately poor seasons, which is why they're... And the winner of that game, either Tottenham or Manchester United, after those seasons in the league, will be playing Champions League football next season. Who is it going to be?
I think Man United.
Because...
Because you don't
hope.
Tottenham.
I think Kulusevski's a massive miss.
I agree.
I think if Kulusevski's playing, I'm probably going with Tottenham, but I think he's by far their best player, and I think it'll be a big miss. And I just think Man United have that little bit extra than they do, in my opinion. But it could go anyway.
Kulusevski, Maddison, Bergvall are really important players. So you'll probably end up with a midfield three of Bentancur, Sarr and Bissouma. So in terms of someone that's going to have that little bit of extra quality, it's going to be more difficult. But with Son, Solanke, they can win this game. Of course, we can talk about. And Roy Keane made a very valid point. I totally get it that Manchester United's history can carry you through, but there isn't anything when you've watched Manchester United and to work on that basis and go, because that's going to change anything. It's going to be anything can happen. It's going to be one of the great pillar fights.
And even when they've had difficult seasons, Manchester United have managed to come home with a piece of silverware. But Les, are you Team Spurs for this one?
Of course, all day long. I've had this all day, like nothing less. Like I'm really desperate for them not to win it.
You're buying a Bruno shirt.
I'm going sports shirt.
For Tottenham.
No, I just think they've been poor in the league this season, but I think in this competition they've turned up and they've been at their best when they have turned up. So I think with Bissouma and Sarr, start of the season and Bentancur, they were good in that midfield. So I'm course going for Spurs.
Tottenham have got one over. They've beat them the last 3 times, haven't they?
Yeah, and they have got a big performance.
Yeah, they've got good,
Oh, no, now you want to chat.
Indumentaria, la Kings Limited Gold Edition, solo hay 50 unidades de todos los equipos y también puede ser vuestra entrando en kingsleague.pro, así que es los datos a tener en cuenta en cuanto a indumentarias. Gran partido, Gonzalo, Gerard, el que tenemos por delante.
Ojo, estilo La Bombonera, estadio de River.
Hostia, más minutos de retraso en el inicio, ¿eh? Ya tenemos lío.
Lo llamó Edo, dibujando la parábola sobre la banda derecha, donde en el vértice del área aparece Nadir. ¡Nadir para adentro! ¡Gol! De Nadir Lua, que tiene una facilidad pasmosa. Encuentra a Pablo, qué balón para Nadir para el segundo. Se zafa de Cócera, es un golazo. ¡Es un golazo! Señoras, señores, bienvenidos al show de Nadir Lua. Pibe.
El mejor.
Vamos
haciendo espionaje, ¿eh? Vaya mierda dado, pibe. Ya te puedes ir a la cúpula a comer, va.
Tiene que salir Cócera para entregar hacia el centro. Se la regala Coy, le puede pegar Coy para adentro.
Vaya chicha, nano.
¡Gol! De Porcinos Óscar Coy. Pues sí.
Pero es que, señores.
Que no te lo dije, hombre.
¿Cómo lo usamos?
Penalti.
¿Será penalti?
Vamos, Cuni.
Puede meter en el partido a Cuni. Jordi para adentro, qué golazo.
¡Wow!
¡Dios! ¡Gol! Vamos con Nadir Lua y con Laura Vizcaíno.
Pues sí, Nadir, 2 goles, victoria y a cuartos, enhorabuena.
Sí, sabíamos que el partido iba a ser muy importante porque veníamos de una muy mala dinámica. El equipo ha estado bien, sufríamos defensivamente y creo que hemos estado muy juntitos y nada, primer objetivo cumplido.
Os espera Science, rival complicado, imagino.
Sí, empatamos contra ellos y en shootout perdimos. Ha quedado segundo por algo. Nada, concentración, confianza con nosotros mismos y intentar ganar para el sábado estar en el Wizzing.
Os lo veremos mañana. Mucha suerte.